recognize it. I think we're live, John.
Yay, we're live. Yeah, I changed it up a little bit. I forget it's not Carisco, like like where your face is half lit, half not. I forget the name for it. There's a portrait name, but it was like I'm kind of over it, so I like just moved it just slightly. So now I have hopefully better lighting, and we'll see.
It's cool. Different perspective.
I'm enjoying it. I feel like throughout the like when you're a little kid and you're in your room and then you feel like, hey, you want to move the furniture around, and it feels like it marks a new era of furniture movement. I feel like that in the office that happened for me this weekend. I was like, you know what, this is a new era. I want to demarcate, one and two, or before and after. So I did that with. Anyway, welcome everyone to the Coach Training Flourish podcast. I'm your host, John Edge Williams. We're here with Raj Anderson. Welcome, and thanks for this Q&A session. So Raj, how are you? How are things going?
I'm good. I was talking to Ashley just before this, and I can't believe we're in July already.
Right.
And I was thinking about, this seems like a good point, personally, just to reflect on things. And I was journaling this morning on what am I going to keep saying yes to and what might I be saying no to? Mm-hmm. What about you, John?
Summertimes are always lovely. It's lovely here in Hood River. It's just really good. And I've been getting into kiteboarding this summer, which I've always wanted to do since moving here, but I've been doing it with my daughters, and it's so fun. It's so good. It's just really sweet. I realize I have a pretty sweet couple of years ahead of me before they go off. And I feel a lot of happiness that I found something that I can connect with them on, and then get another thing to do. So that's been in my space mostly over the weekend, last couple of weeks.
And what about coaching or business and kind of education over summer? What's that like for you?
It's a time, it slows down a little bit from just a pure business standpoint. For us, summers are always a little bit of a lull, which isn't welcome after it feels like the summer break from a busy school year. And a lot of it's looking at, okay, so what do we need to do for next year? What are the kinds of things that we need to be putting in place? It's a lot, but it's a good. I feel like we know what we need to do, which is nice. So there's that.
So I have some questions for you, as usual.
Let's do it, please.
I've got a couple of questions that are connected to one of our blogs. That blog is on what do coaches make, and other answers about coaching sustainability. So that's just a reference point for anyone who's listening. Go and check out the blog, and John and I are going to explore a bit about it. Yet before we get into that, I've got a question I'm curious about, because this has come up a few times in overviews for me, and I wanted to see what your perspective was on this, John. So what words of wisdom would you have for any new coaches who struggle with structure or don't really like the process?
Like struggle with having too much structure?
Yeah, feeling boxed in and want to feel that they need to use that creativity.
Yeah, I'd say try it. Try the ideas that you have, and especially if you can record if you have permission to record the session, try it out and then listen to it and see what works, what doesn't work. I love the idea of experimenting and seeing, I have this tool or I have this idea. I want to break this tool. I want to go in this other direction. I think those are really useful ideas. Those are useful things to do and try, but do it mindfully, not just because of the sake of, doing it without having a way to reflect on it, look at the usefulness of it, not usefulness of it. I do think in terms of structure, the time model, I feel like that's a really useful structure. I know some coaches feel like that, setting a topic, looking at the importance of it, the measurability, then echoing it back to a client. I feel like that's just a good practice. Aside from that, if a coach feels stuck in any one of the tools or exercises that we're doing between, let's say, perspective work, and you're doing, okay, this is, we've now identified the topic. Now we're going to try to you know, create a little bit of distance between the topic and the perspective. I mean, if that starts to feel cumbersome, then I would just throw it out, but mindfully, and in a way that you can go back and listen to it and say, yeah, this is great, or no, this is not good.
I like that, doing it mindfully. And the reason I wanted to explore it with you, John, because John likes to try new ideas and experiment all the time.
I do. I feel like the people asking these questions are very, like, yeah, like they are my people. Like I'm in there too. I also bulk a little bit at too much structure in coaching sessions. NLP, it has even more structure in these sessions. Therapy, I don't know. I mean, I don't, and these are all, it's not all monolithic either. Like, there are way different kinds of modalities, different kinds of therapies, different kind of coaching styles. It's important for you to find your own, find what works for you, and be able to communicate that accurately to potential clients.
So there's befriending that structure, but there's also permission to be you and be creative and step into that space.
Right.
I guess sometimes it can depend on the area that you're coaching in. What do you think about? Because I know I'm an executive coach, and structure is expected in the services that I provide as well, that kind of framework. A lot of the execs that I work with like it, and maybe are too structured at times. What are your thoughts about different coaching industries or niches?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the coach too. Like you know what works for you as a coach, and then what also works for your clients. And it's the kind of training that we offer. I think it allows for that. You're finding your own style, you're finding your own place in the coaching world, but that doesn't mean that it's the end all either. Like I don't want coaches to feel like, oh, okay, if I'm like, this is the only way for me to coach. Like that's not the purpose. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. It's more around giving people a range of, okay, this is the range, this is the menu, this is the this is what the ICF says, this is what the health board says, this is what other coaches have done. You want to be in a spot where your coaching style, in the kinds of questions that you ask, the kinds of exercises that you choose, are done for a specific purpose for the benefit of the client, not done because you just don't feel comfortable going in this other direction, so you're just going to choose the more comfortable direction. That's what you want to avoid as a coach. So if the structure is uncomfortable, then that's an interesting question to say. Like, what about this feels uncomfortable to me? Like maybe I would encourage coaches to try staying exactly with the structure in practice sessions, not like real coaching sessions, but you connect with your colleagues. They both know what's going to happen. Try it and see, what will happen. Because oftentimes some coaches will say, look, I really want to give advice. I am committed to giving advice. I signed up for this to give advice. I really want to tell people what to do. People have said that to me in coaching. In coaching, that is not that is anathema to the idea of coaches being curious and being the student of the client. But let's try it. See what happens. If you do give that advice, and let's also see what happens if temporarily you suspend that completely and go with curiosity 100% of the time, using no tool, just asking curious questions. What happens? And that would be my encouragement, is just to try what happens on both ends of the spectrum and see, so you can develop comfortability with all of it. And then when I'm in a coaching session, frankly, like I'm asking myself, I have 5 different options I can choose. When I'm asking myself, what do I think is going to be most useful for my client? Just simply asking that question is there's no real right answer. There might be more useful answers, but it doesn't matter. Just by asking yourself the question and choosing something, you're in a good spot as a coach.
I love that. Try it and see, experiment, explore. Thanks, John. Okay, so I'm
Let's
going to
scratch.
switch gear,
Cool.
and some
Yeah.
of it might be connected anyway. So, what would you say are some factors that impact coaching salaries?
Well, the biggest one is if you're hired as a coach for an organization, or if you are being a coach on your own. I think coaches on their own make more. You can make more per hour. There's no doubt, but you're putting also in hours that you're not getting paid for. So there's that. What I see salaries are for coaches, full-time coaches. Also depends on geography. I think I've seen anywhere from like mid 40s to low 70s. Yeah, that seems about where it is. Full-time coaches and health and wellness fields. Executive coaches, I haven't heard as much from executive coaches being hired in-house, but as health and wellness. Academic coaches, I mean, we train a lot of them, and they work in universities, so pretty close to what advisors make. That's Yeah, those are salaries in terms of getting hired full time. Building your own practice is hard. It's a challenge. I did it. You know how it is, Raj. Like you're in it. It's initially hard at first. You don't make as much as you think you will at the beginning, but then it's an exponential curve. You start to hit a tipping point when your client base is stable, when you've had sufficient number of clients and former clients that they start referring other people to you, so you can take your focus off of marketing and put it more on delivering the product. That's a really important tipping point to get to. But then it becomes exponential in that sense that you will make more than you thought you were going to, but it will take for me it took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but once it started to tip, it was I don't know, inevitable, I guess. Like, of course, all this hard work, all these years of putting in this energy, and here it is right now. That'd be my only encouragement. If you're building your own business or practice, the work might be linear, but the rewards are exponential. So you gotta be easy on yourself.
I think being easy on yourself, and sometimes when I'm coaching new coaches, or I've done some mentoring with new coaches as well, the things that I've seen that have affected, and it did with me initially when I started out as well, the salary, things around self-value as well, either underconfidence or overconfidence. I've seen coaches go in and set really high rate for coaching clients as well. I think, executive coach, I really think that I should be at $250, $300 an hour. I've read that that's kind of the going rate. And my question is always around kind of sustainability as well around your rates. And then I've worked with and spoken to coaches who've been really underconfident and felt that they can't charge, or that they shouldn't charge, or there's been challenges around boundaries. And I think one of the things we might not ask ourselves when we launch a business is, how do I sell, or how good am I at selling as well? I've seen you sell, John. So you're good at it. You're really good at it. What do you think about what I'm sharing?
Yeah, I think it's the story. Like it's trying to get clear on your story and the vision of what you want. And I often ask myself, are the fundamentals correct? Like, is this from the client's perspective? Let's say let's say a new coach charges 100 an hour. Will it make sense? Because it's not just money that the client is putting into it. They're also putting into it their time and energy and emotion and thought and taking a risk and doing all these things. The same, it's not just money. Does it make sense fundamentally for someone to spend that money, that time, energy? Are they getting the value out of it? And what's tough about that is most new coaches feel a need to justify, to answer that question really concretely at the very beginning, and so they really are trying to help the client have an insight or make a decision or solve a problem that they can say for sure, yes, like solving this problem is definitely worth the 100 an hour that I'm charging. And new coaches, myself included, I felt compelled to make that happen almost every single coaching session, especially in the beginning. And you hear it when you're listening to these recordings, like coaches, and it's a natural human thing to do. When a coach can understand, yes, like the fundamentals of this are correct. And for me, it was by being a client, by feeling what it felt like to be a client and knowing, yes, like absolutely, this is providing me value. And what provides value in a coaching session it's not the coach's advice. It's the ability to process things. And we are living in a society where knowledge is coming at us, ideas, like there's a hose of media that's just being created. Like we are not media poor. But that wasn't always the case. Like, in the past, like getting your hands on a newspaper was a pretty big deal. Even that there was a newspaper that existed was a pretty big deal. That you could read was a pretty big deal. Now it's ubiquitous. So this torrent of information that's just flooding at us, it's more around, we as human beings need space. We need space to process. And you can trust, is it worth 100 an hour to process space? That's a lot of money. That can be a lot of money. And I would say the answer is yes, absolutely. And if you are not being coached, and there's a barrier of entry, there are many coaches who will take on practice clients for free. There are many coaches who will look at having discounted seats. I feel strongly that I do not want cost to be a barrier for anyone to find a coach. If you are looking for one, please contact us. We have plenty of people looking for practice coaches or practice clients. I know that other coaches are offering scholarship seats. Like there's just a lot available to find a coach in this field. And when you start getting into it and start getting coached and you realize yourself, wow, this is almost like priceless. That is another engine to help coaches gain the confidence of the product that they're offering. So I think if coaches if coaches are feeling hesitant to charge or unconfident about the coaching process, then they should absolutely get a coach, experience it firsthand. Our training is designed that way. That they're coaching and being coached on purpose, because a lot of people who take coach training have never actually hired a coach themselves. That's amazing to me, but it's it's the space.
Yeah, and I've said it about a million times before. It's life-changing when you have a coach yourself. That's what got me into coaching, and I've asked myself that question before, like, what would I pay for coaching as well? What would I hire a coach for? What would I pay them for? And I think that helped me when I was setting my rates and things as well, because it has been invaluable. And thinking about holding space, I have a client who, every time we meet, and I've questioned myself, inner critic can still show up at times. I'm like, what is this guy getting out of the session? He's just, I love it. I love just processing out loud. I ask a few questions here and there. For him, having that space, he doesn't get it anywhere else in his life because of everything else that he does and how busy he is. It's life-changing for him, just having a question now and again thrown in. And it's lovely, isn't it? Even though we shouldn't place our value on the type of questions we're asking, there is, for me, it's so fulfilling. You hear the client say, great question.
Yeah.
When you ask a question and hold that space and just wait.
Yeah. I like when my coach asks very few questions. She just lets me go. I'm like, it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Holding that space is really valuable.
So building off of that, John, sorry.
I don't know what that was. I was like, was that a bird? No, I think it was a 5-year-old. So
I thought maybe it was a bird. We hear trains and birds and all kinds of things when we're on these sessions. So what are some tips to add value and profit to a coaching business?
I think as soon as a coach can shift from marketing and sales to just delivering the product, like the sooner you can get to that shift, the easier it is to focus on your client base, and you can open up more time for clients. And that to me is the biggest shift. The second one is, really looking at systems, all the systems around scheduling, you know, appointment reminders, try to automate as much as you can. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, for me, and I've often thought, like, what would it be like if I just went back to just coaching and just said, I love this stuff, I want to go do it. I think there's also an element of getting fed, just your soul gets fed when you do this work. That, profitability. I know some coaches, they want to start hiring other coaches and having like a coaching organization. I've seen people do that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's hard. It's more of a thing, it's harder to do it. What I've realized from this whole process, I'm doing this for the purpose of really augmenting education with coaching skills and kindness and empathy and this kind of training. And in order to do that mission, I needed to build a training organization that could handle the volume of people that I wanted to train. What I didn't realize is how far away it would take me from some of the stuff that I really love, which is the coaching, which is the training, and how into a deep dark forest I had to go. But I feel like it was useful for me to grow and to see it and to really step into that space, and to lead a team like this. It's a necessary thing for me to do for the development. So I feel like as a coach, if you really are looking at how do you maximize this, like what you need, if you start working with other people, I feel like it's a viable option. But it's even harder than being self-employed. Like it's a whole nother beast. And I think that you got to take a couple deep breaths and realize, okay, if we're really tackling this, what does it look like? Don't have to start big, but even starting small is a big deal. So
Yeah.
That's my thoughts on those.
It's a lot more work when you've got to set up your business infrastructure and all of those things. You're working with people all over the world. You've got contracts and agreements and liability insurances and subcontracting. So it's all of that to think about, isn't there? If you're bringing people on board, as I've learned. So, it adds extra layers to that. The other thing I would say is to add profit, get certified and get your credential, because that's what I learned as well. I had different certifications for coaching before I moved to the US from the UK, and, I had been coaching for a long time, but everything changed for me. And I'm not just saying this, but when I did my certification with Coach Training EDU, and then I went on to get my ICF, it opened up a whole new world for me in terms of opportunities and coaching and, the hourly rate you can get. And the higher up you go, you get your certification, that you get your ACC, then you get your PCC. And then, people reach out to you, whether your desire is to do MCC or not. But I've seen a difference in what I can ask of the businesses I work together, because now I can kind of prove that credibility and that learning and that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that seems, getting your certification is a big deal. It's useful. Yeah, it's fun to see your journey, Raj, like throughout all of this.
It is. I have to pinch myself too when I look at that journey and just stop for a moment and think. And that's the power of, I think, coaching and visualizing and future self. That reminds me, I got to do a new recording actually, John, on future self.
Yeah, I've done it. I did a recent one myself. It's lovely. And I think that's, so the thing about charging, it's, I started at charging $100 an hour for my coaching. And, if looking back, I think that's reasonable. Maybe I would have started at 50 an hour, just to build up my client base maybe a little more quickly. But I think you find that balance point. And once you start getting, some clients, that also open it up to people, if they couldn't pay the full rate, to is, say what would make sense, and they become your fierce allies as well in helping you develop your client base. So I think it's a solid approach as a coach to try, offer sessions at 20, 50, whatever the minimum feels like to you, to just to get people in the seats. Just get coaching hours under your belt. And then once you start to feel full, then you up it. That's the strategy that I would do if I were starting from zero again.
I like that. And and what are your thoughts on niche or area of expertise? How might that shift what you can charge?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, 4 minutes. Executive coaches can obviously charge the most. Health and wellness, academic, other kinds of coaching, you cannot charge that much, or maybe you can. Maybe the um, the market allows you to. But I think the specialty thing for me is more around what does a coach really love to do? Like, if you and what do you feel called to do? Like, who do you feel called to work with, and know that your experience can add value? If you're asking that question, then I think everything else will fall into place. It did for me. I've seen it with a lot of other coaches too. Once you find a specific niche, then it opens up an opportunity to become an expert in something really specific. And that's exciting. And if you really want to think about national platforms, or making a difference in humanity, the more specific you are, the more opportunity you have to become an expert in a small thing. And that's what the world needs. The world needs our voices that really share kindness, empathy, awareness. This is big work.
So, what would be a coaching question that you would give our listeners to go away with?
Something I've been thinking about too is looking at feedback. Like, when you receive feedback, to, instead of taking it and feeling the personalization of it, instead of that, really asking yourself the question, what is my default perspective on, like, the intent of things around me. I was doing some reading around social situations where people can assume negative intent, or they can assume positive intent, and it's just a lot. It can get complicated and tricky in different situations, but when positive intent is assumed, there's an openness there. And so I think the coaching question is around, what do you feel like the intent of your circumstances are, and what's your openness level to them? That's what I've been playing with myself, and it's a fascinating thing to look at it, all these areas of your life, and look at it like this. What about for you, Raj? What's been a coaching question you've been working with, or inquiry that you've been playing with?
I think for me, and I've been asking this, as I said, last few days, is like, what's the difference for me, in line with my values, between where I am at life now, between kind of achievement and fulfillment?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when an answer that I am more fulfilled than just focused on achievement, that's when I know that I am truly doing my life's work.
That's cool. I love that. Now let's end there. And it's time. There we
Yeah,
are.
it
Well,
is.
thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of this community, and coaching community, and listening to us explore these ideas, and riff a little bit. It's truly a pleasure. And Raj, thank you. It's really fun to do this with you. And we'll see you next week, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, John. We'll see you all next week. Send us your questions.
Cool. Take care.